Welcome to the Wealthy Retailer Podcast. My name is Dan Holman. Super excited today for my guest, author, business coach, mentor, fabulous speaker, Steve Brooks with the Pop-Up Expert. Actually, Steve Brooks is the Pop-Up Expert. Steve, thank you so much for joining us today.
Dan, it's a real pleasure. Thanks for having me on. Really appreciate it.
Yeah, it's my pleasure. Thank you. Steve, you're down in Chicago right now, is that correct?
That's right.
Yeah, so, I mean, our weather isn't that much different.
For a few years.
Yeah.
No, it's not, actually. Yeah, cold, sunny, and bright.
And bright, yeah.
Very fortunate, and bright.
Yeah. So I've had the opportunity, of course, to hear you speak a couple of times. Really, really impressed. You truly are a retail expert, and I'm really excited today for our conversation. Before we get kind of into it deep, tell us a little bit about the Pop-Up Retail Expert.
Listen, it's been a fabulous journey over the last 36 years now. I've been in business, and when I left school, I went to work for a bank for 6 months and really, really hated it. Did the next best thing and ended up working in an insurance business and hated that, and then managed to find my way onto a retail management scheme with a well-known retailer at the time, sadly not around these days, called Woolworth, FW Woolworth, which was probably the best move I made in my life around getting into retail, and just found that I had a passion for it and had some amazing mentors and coaches, and so I took that expertise when I moved into selling, and then was fortunate enough to be able to be part of a startup, and ended up buying the business from somebody 36 years ago, and it's gone from strength to strength. I've built businesses around the retail environment, and I'm actually on film back in 1997 of saying pop-up retailing, and actually saying to the camera, I don't know who came up with that phrase, but until somebody says it's them, I'm saying it's me.
It's you. You're the pop-up.
So I don't know, but it's great because pop-up works for everybody, whether it's in lead generation, whether it's in startup testing before you invest. And I know we're going to talk about that. Whether you're over inventoried, or whether or not you're looking to expand the business. So. I've been lucky to work with all kinds of amazing businesses, turnarounds, blue chips, interesting products. So, yeah, I'm very thankful for the opportunities I've been given.
That's awesome. And so, do you see that pop-up? I mean, in a clearly defined role for a layman like myself, do you see that? Do you define pop-up as just the opportunity to get outside of your own four walls and try something new?
Yeah, so there isn't actually anything new in pop-up. It's been around since the beginning of time, right? We used to call them markets and souks and bazaars and so on. So for me, pop-up is taking the business out of its standard environment and putting it into a short-term location in front of a lot of people, and that's why that's working in obviously malls. It's working for restaurants, but you could do pop-ups at craft fairs, and you're actually now seeing specific environments that just have pop-up shops set up around a location. So I think it's multifaceted in that way. But yeah, if you wanted to boil it down to a single sentence, I would say it's taking the business outside of its normal bricks and mortar environment and putting it somewhere different, and actually making it a different animal as well. Experimenting with marketing, experimenting with display and pricing, and also customer service.
Right. Okay. So I'm going to come back to that pop-up in a second. I want to talk for a quick minute about, I watched a recent interview with you on TD Ameritrade, and there was significant focus, on what, if you could see me, my quotations, big retail, Kohl's and Macy's and Home Depot and so on and so on. And if I'm being honest, I don't believe that big retail tells an entirely accurate story about where we're headed. So give me kind of your outlook for the indie retailer, the ones that I spend, every waking moment thinking about. In most cases, what we spend our waking moment thinking about, that independent retailer. What's your outlook for them in 2020?
I think independent retailing is where landlords of malls and landlords of strip malls and landlords of just vacant units should really be focusing, right? I actually don't think there's been a better time right now, the last 12 months, 2020, the start of a new decade, for independent retailers to really come to the front of retailing and go, this is how you do it. This is how you do it well. And the reason that big box retailing it has been failing, if you just set aside the financial troubles that they have or the overstretching assets and moving around leases to make money for owners, the reason that they've been failing is that they don't offer that real amazing customer service that an independent retailer can, right? For an independent retailer, it's about the consumer, okay? The minute you walk in, it's about what their needs are and actually, extracting the best value from that experience. 78% of consumers still want to touch, feel, and engage with the product before they buy it. So, if people are thinking about, Amazon's the death of retail, actually, in my opinion, it's not, because what it is, it's forcing the consumer to go, actually, I want to take a look at this product before I wear it. I want to take a look at this product before I purchase it. So becoming an independent retailer, when that consumer comes in, that's your best opportunity. 64% of people will return to the same store and seek out the same salesperson that they spoke to previously if they've gone away with great advice and great customer service and obviously great value.
And that's a big number. I mean, 2 out of 3 customers go back and seek out the same salesperson that they worked with when they had a good experience. That's a big number.
Yeah, it is. And so, I think it matters to an independent retailer, right? It matters to open on time. It matters to be well merchandised. Yes, it matters to be competitive. It matters to be to be part of the community. And whilst we have things like Small Business Saturday and so on, in my opinion, every Saturday should be Small Business Saturday. I'm sorry, that just one weekend a year you go and shop locally. You should be shopping locally as often as you can.
Right, you're preaching to the choir. I mean, that's
Yeah. Because that's how these guys survive. That's how your community thrives, because they offer employment. That's how the whole community benefits. So I think independent retailing in 2020 has a pivotal role to play in retailing. I absolutely believe that.
Agreed. Okay, I want to touch on something. You said, that there's this thought that Amazon, may be killing retail. Is it possible that Amazon is actually creating a rebirth in retail as retailers, the independent and otherwise? I mean, let's talk about, in the news here not very long ago, Nike pulled the trigger, and said, we're pulling away from Amazon. And, Nike in no way, shape, or form is an independent, but their intention is to mirror independent boutique stores. They're putting up, experiential stores. And I think that is coming on the back of them saying, we don't need to do business with or on Amazon. I'm not looking to slam Amazon, but I'm certainly of the belief that missing customer experience that happens in that instant gratification world that Amazon has created, which is great for them. They've done a fabulous job of that. They're building a massive distribution center here not far from our city, and they're going to employ lots of people and do lots of good things, from an employment standpoint in our community. But more importantly, I think for the independent retailer, they're helping them become stronger by saying, if you want to win back my customer, the Amazon customer, you've got to deliver a better service. What's your thought on that?
Yeah, I absolutely agree with you. I I think that what Amazon did and is doing is constantly kicking and pushing retail to be better and offer more more service, better experiences for the consumer.
Right.
But let's not forget, Amazon's actually getting into bricks and mortar retail anyway.
Yeah, good for you. Fair enough. Yes.
With Amazon Go and in the local mall where I am in Chicago, they're building a big store that will have their big brands in there and so on. So I think it's come full circle. I think you're absolutely right that Amazon's driving people to be better, and it's come as no surprise that you talk about Nike, because Nike have done exactly the same thing in terms of shopping malls as well, by coming out of malls and creating those smaller boutique stores. They're really kicking it in terms of that whole athleisure market where they're really dominating. Yes, they've got a lot to do with their online experience and so on, but I think that they've realized that actually not being part of Amazon is probably more an advantage than a disadvantage. What worries me, Dan, about independent retailers is that they feel that they have to have this online store as well to compete. And that's a huge investment. That's a huge drain on resources, people, and being able to deliver. And I think that it diverts effort from actually the core business.
Right.
And yes, I'm a huge believer in you, as you know, in terms of that social media aspect. That be present, talk about the story, be genuine, be authentic, let people know what's going on. But building an online store and all of those things that you have to have in the background sometimes is just deflects you from what you're good at.
Right.
And so you focus on the customer, focus on getting the doors open.
Right.
And focus on being who you are.
Right. And so here you and I are. I'm going to say somewhat self-proclaimed retail experts, and we are probably, Steve, in the minority. When we go back to retailers and say, this online strategy of yours is pulling you away from your core focus. Because truthfully, 6 out of 10 experts are saying if you're not online, you're dying. And I completely agree with not online, you're dying, but online is not necessarily commerce driven.
Correct.
90% of consumers are at home right now dreaming and exploring about where to shop, and they're doing that online. And so if you can't see inside my store in real time or virtually, or get a sense of what it feels like to be in my store, you probably are dying.
Yeah, I agree. I think you've nailed it there in separating out the two things, the e-commerce side of things,
right,
and the online experience. And so there's never been so many opportunities to be visual and to get your message out. Instagram is blowing up what's going on in terms of consumers. Even LinkedIn, I think for a long time people have underestimated the power of actually LinkedIn,
right?
And that's coming along. TikTok and Snapchat and obviously Facebook and so on.
Right.
I think it's tremendously important to be visible. I think it is tremendously advantageous for you to engage with that consumer in that way, but you do want to be driving them in, and I think you're right. You separate the e-commerce thing, but you should have an online strategy to develop interest, to engage with your potential customer, with your existing customer, and use that as a real springboard for your own retail sales.
Right. And so let me ask you this. You touched on LinkedIn, and someone else I know has kind of said to me that LinkedIn is a place you need to be, Dan. And it's not somewhere that I have really done a lot of work, but I took a step back, and when my friend Rob said to me, you got to be on LinkedIn, Dan, you got to get these out on LinkedIn, not Instagram and Facebook. I took that to heart, and I thought, well, wait a minute. If I'm a retailer, why am I not using LinkedIn as a vehicle to get my message out? And so I went back and I searched my LinkedIn, whatever number of contacts I have, 2,000 or 2,500, whatever it is. Some of them are retailers, but they're not putting out a retail message. But I'm their consumer, and I'm spending, in some cases, I may be embarrassed to say, but some cases I'm spending 90 or more minutes a day on LinkedIn. Why aren't retailers using LinkedIn as a vehicle to talk to their consumer?
I think big business is. Certainly in my feed, I see a lot of activity with store openings and people just telling about even the pop-up experiences,
right.
and obviously that it relates to people that's within your network, but it shouldn't stop you. You see the beauty about using Instagram and Twitter and Facebook and all of that is that you can link all of these platforms together, remember, and stick out, a common message. Now, the smart people that know far more about this than me will say you do need to craft a message that's LinkedIn focused. You do need to craft a message that's Instagram focused. But for independent retailers, I don't think that's as important. I think it's if you've got the ability to get this out for free, remember, then why not exploit it, right?
Right.
And then you will find that. Of course, it is about the people in your network. It is about the people that you connect with in terms of that feed. And we all know that all of these guys, mess around with their algorithms because they want to do this and want you to go here and want you to go there. But if it's a free activity that you can link to something else that you're doing, my advice would be on it.
Right.
Where's the harm?
Yeah, exactly. So, Steve, you I'm going to say maybe in the last 8 months, I've really seen more and more and more of you virtually. I get a better sense of who Steve is. What sort of has pushed you? To put yourself out there on Instagram with really great messaging? And how do you sort of coach that today in your retailers that are still somewhat, I'm going to say, nervous? They're worried that they're not putting out a professional message. But, I love to watch your Instagram videos because they're real, and our retailers are struggling to put real things out there. Why is that?
I think for me, the reason for doing it was, I've got a message I want to get out there. These are great platforms for me to get that and reach out to people and connect with people in that way. And I think it's exactly the same for retailers. It doesn't have to look like you just spent $10,000 in a studio. It doesn't, because people know if you're authentic or not. People know if you're genuine or not. I like that raw approach that I have, because it doesn't cost me anything, right? Which is always good, right? But B, that's who I am. That's just me. That's just me being me. And I think people connect with that, and that's the same with an independent retailer. That just be genuine, just be who you are. Now, if you want to put together professional-looking advertisements and things like that, that's a different thing. But people buy in, Dan, don't they, to people? People relate to human beings. It's funny, people say, "Oh, are you in a B2B business? You're in a C2B business? Are you in a B2C business?" Actually, I'm in an H2H business. Right. And I think that's what people are looking for. The authentic, genuine. This is who we are. This is what we do. Stop by and say hi.
And so I'm going to go on the assumption that you putting yourself out there, you being genuine, you looking to make that human connection has impacted your business.
Yeah, greatly.
Right.
Greatly. Yeah.
Yeah, and I say to the consumer, to the retailer, why are so many of us putting ourselves out there? Because we've got nothing better to do? I think that, entrepreneurialism is all about us figuring out a way to make a dollar. And we've figured out that if we can put ourselves out there and allow people to connect with who we are, not as much about what we are or what we do, but rather who and why, we have success. And we need to push retailers to do more and more of that.
I agree. The other thing that I found that this has also done, certainly for me, and if retailers pick this up and get on the bandwagon as well, this is a good thing, right? That actually you learn so much more because people will tell you about those experiences and people share their knowledge for free to go, actually, well, I did this and I love your content. Da, 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 da. Now, somebody said something to me when I just started doing the kind of these little daily videos. Love the way you're doing it, but have you thought about just shooting the camera back a little bit so you can see more of you and more of the space behind you?
Right.
Never occurred to me, but it was such an insightful piece of information that it actually changed changed the way I did things and for the better. And I think that there's so much knowledge out there that for certainly and within the retail community, people love to share what's working. People will seek out your advice for sure, but the consumer will appreciate that virtual connection.
Yeah, agreed. 100% agreed. Okay, so let's get away from social. And I know this may come back up again in a minute, but let's get away from social and no permission to play stuff, no customer experience stuff. What does a retailer must do in 2020 to compete in this world? To not just to compete, but to be successful. What do they need to do?
I think from a business perspective, right, as with retail, as with any other business, you've got to know your numbers, right? You've got to know your are you being profitable? You have to understand your margins. I spoke at a conference a while back, and we were talking about funding and so on, and I asked the question. There was 500 people in the room. How many of you know what your margin is, right? And 2 or 3 hands went up, right? So you've got to understand if you're making money, you've got to understand what your break-even point is. And I think, you've got to have a strategy as well. You've got to have a plan. But break it down. I'm a big fan, and I know you are, of kind of 90-day plans. Here's where we want to be. This is where we want to go. Yeah, by all means, set some ambitious goals for the end of the year or whatever that might be. But it's the old adage, how do you eat an elephant? One piece at a time. Break it down into smaller chunks.
Right.
So understand your numbers, build a great team around you, but then take on some expertise around your business that isn't involved in your business. People like yourself, people like me that will tell you the hard facts, that will hold you accountable. That will give you best practice, give you great guidance, and then will help you celebrate when you're doing well. We'll be there to go, come on, we need to get where we want to be. We can't sit around on our laurels and just hope it's going to happen. Right. Hope is not a strategy, as I like to say.
It's true. It's true.
So I think that. I also think that that businesses, retailers need to be part of that business community within their environment. Being a member of their local chamber of commerce or being a member of their local retail association, because there are benefits around that.
Right.
And I can tell you through working with chambers and with business organizations that they offer a lot. They put on events. They really do mobilize the general public to get behind local retail as well. So do that in 2020 if you're not already doing it, and then obviously understand your business and what other people are doing in your niche, whether it's fashion or electrical or art or coffee shops or whatever it might be. Look at those people that are being successful, that may be doing something slightly different from the way you do it, and not poo-poo the idea of advancement in an industry.
Right.
I'm sure you've heard this. This is the way we've always done it. well, that doesn't mean to say it's right.
Right, for sure.
Okay, so be open to new ideas, be open to new experiences of learning, be open to new experiences of doing things in a different way that will improve ultimately your business.
Yeah, I agree, and I think that you said look at what others are doing. That there is this significant lack of gap analysis right now, where retailers are not studying other retailers as much as they need to, and not to replicate what they're doing, but more importantly, to identify the gap that exists, what they're not doing that I can do. And I think that that's an opportunity for retailers. This is an opportunity for retailers forever. Figure out what other people are doing. Not just do it better, but figure out what they're not doing that you can do, what you can bring their customer or your customer. How can you earn some more market share? It's by filling that gap. There's one other thing I wanted to touch on. You and I are of the same opinion, and we sometimes make this mistake when we get caught up with customers. We tend to love them too much, if there's such a thing. And it's really important for me to remind my clients and you to remind your clients, I'm not here to make you feel better. I'm here to make you better. I'm here to tell you the hard truth, the things that you're not seeing. And, retailers today need to be open. They need to open themselves up to that critique, to that criticism. And I think that that's part of how they'll elevate themselves, in the next decade of retail.
Well, I think you're absolutely right. I just want to go back to the point as well that we were talking about. How many times have you walked into a retail environment and asked for something, right? And you've been told, oh, no, we don't sell that. We get asked for it all the time and we don't sell it.
Yeah, that's the second statement. Everybody asks us for that and we don't sell that. I'm sorry.
Light bulb moment, guys. And if you're sitting listening to this and that statement just resonated with you, I suggest you get to a supplier and buy whatever that product is tomorrow, because you're just losing sales left, right, and centre.
And
but go on,
yeah. I was going to say, only 2 out of 10 customers will tell you something. 8 will leave without saying a word. And so if you hear from 2 customers, something about the same product, geez, I wish you had black golf shirts. Well, you damn sure better get some black golf shirts. Yeah,
I agree. I totally agree. And I think you're right. In terms of where people need to be. Listen, I don't want people to pay me to be their friend.
Right.
Right. I want to be paid because I want to make you better. I want to make you successful.
It is about the result.
And it is about the result. Right. Keep your eye on the prize the whole time. And I always say that when I went into business, I went from working for an idiot to working for a lunatic.
Yes.
And that whole entrepreneurial journey that every retailer has been through and will continue to go through. Yeah. But you do need to keep your eye on the prize, and that's part of what we do. I actually believe, Dan, that's the biggest thing that we can offer people is that wood for the trees approach. That listen, sit down. I need to tell you something. Right. And you might not like me, but this is why you're paying me.
Right.
And so I think you're spot on with that.
Yeah, good for you. Good for you. I totally agree. Okay, Steve, as we finish up here, fast forward 3 years, what does retail look like? Will we see a decline, in online spending as this, experiential customer becomes the majority buyer, not this, instant gratification customer that we're seeing today, but more the customer, as this younger generation is more focused on experience? What's going to happen in retail in the next 3 years?
3 years is an awful long time, isn't it?
It is.
I mean, look at the advancements we've had in the last 12 months. I think you're going to see a lot more of certainly bigger businesses perhaps replicating the Kohl's Amazon thing about, more places to return things because they feel that there's an association and that will give you the opportunity to shop and so on. As far as big box retail is concerned, I think in the next 3 years you're probably going to see some larger casualties in major retailing than maybe we've seen in the last 3. But I'm still of the opinion that independent retailing will go from strength to strength, and that, you know, although the shopping landscape might change, and again, you know, independent retailers need to be as adaptable as Target and as agile as you know, as Macy's or whatever that might be. The landscape will change in terms of people wanting to be more engaged by their retailer rather than that instant gratification thing that we have right now.
Yeah.
Technology is going to play a big part in that for sure, and you know, even in terms of things like, you know, credit card processing and so on, and the way in which we pay for goods, I think you're going to see a lot of advancement of that in the next 3 years. Just in terms of how we actually shop, in terms of almost that Uber experience of being able to walk into any environment and have that, you know, almost cashless, cardless approach to things. I think that's going to be a major development in the next 3 years. And I also think you're going to see, you know, some of the stronger independent retailers, certainly that you work with and that I have associations with, going from strength to strength, because they're going to get it right. And they're getting it right now, and so that's their foundation for their growth in the next 3 years.
Yeah. Oh my gosh, what a great conversation, Steve. I'm not sure that we got it all in here. I think we maybe need to have you back on another session and keep this conversation going. Thank you. So listen, tell us how and where to find out more about you and the Pop-Up Retail Expert.
Yeah, sure. So you can email me at steve@thepopupexpert.com. You'll find me on Instagram. Have a look at Dan's Instagram page, and you'll find me, because we're linked on there. You'll find me on LinkedIn for sure. Listen, I'm here to talk to anybody. The conversation is something I think that's just like general conversation is lacking in the world. We've got so used to messaging people that you know, physical conversations are the key to success, in my opinion.
Yeah.
And so, you know, I'm happy to talk to anybody, always willing to share my knowledge and experience. So, yeah, please reach out, drop me an email, and let's have a conversation.
That's awesome. Steve, the Pop-Up Retail Expert. Thank you so much, Steve. Super appreciate you spending some time with us today.
Thank you very much indeed. And happy holidays, everybody.
Yeah, same. That's good, Steve. Thank you.